why did you endeavor into academia in the UAE?
For me, it started back in 2007, December 2008, during the financial economic crisis. That was the time for me when I was working as a financial consultant over in Chicago for a brokerage firm. You know, a typical finance role, an 8-to-5 job. And it was during that time, just right after December 2008, when I graduated, which probably wasn't the best of times to graduate, but I still ended up getting a job at that point in finance, which again, you would seem that would be a bit hard, but just once I got into finance, I was working for about 6 months. And during that time, I realized that I wanted to do something different. Now, I had already had some teaching experience while I was working as a teaching assistant in Northern Illinois University in Chicago. And an opportunity came up whereby I was able to venture into Oman for about 1 year. And it was meant to be a role where I go in and set up a financing operation at an insurance company and set up their financial records. I decided, why not? So moved over to Oman. The idea was to get back to the States. And now Dubai was not in the picture. However, I ended up going on a couple of training trips to Dubai, whereby our company was liaising with a lot of different universities. And one thing led to another. I ended up just staying in touch with a lot of those academics while in Oman. And I thought to myself, well, this is the challenge that I was waiting for. I always wanted to be in a role where I'm exposed to different learners, different environments. And I've always been comfortable with the North American environment. To me, this was something that I was waiting for. I wanted to be in front of an audience that had an entirely different mindset than mine, had entirely different belief system, attitudes, and all that. And I decided, why not? Where else can I get this opportunity other than in in a metropolitan environment like Dubai? So I went in, and I still remember my first day in a classroom where I was in front of a group of students that were looking at me, and I was looking at them, and we were both trying to figure out where this is going to go. And that was the beginning of an interesting journey that ended up me staying in Dubai for about 9 years. So now I'm back in Toronto, but one of the reasons why I ventured into academia, if someone asks me, the primary reason was to be in an environment, I know it sounds cliche, but being in an environment where I'm not just a lecturer, I'm also a learner myself.
You were actually born in Oman, weren't you?
Yes, I was born in Oman. That is correct. I was born in Oman, migrated to the States when I was young, and I have been around. So there was always this sense of feeling that I would end up going back to Oman for a bit and then come back.
Awesome. Thank you. Casiana.
I became a US citizen in 2015, and I knew that I wanted to have another international experience. I am a European who immigrated to the United States, and that offered a lot of growth and boost into my professional life and also my personal life. And I knew that having another international experience, kind of as Shamik said, like someone with a different mindset, different values than my belief system, will definitely help me. So since 2015, after I became a US citizen, I started applying for different programs and different opportunities and jobs around the world. And I didn't actually choose academia as a field. It was mostly like academia chose me. I mostly wanted to do research, but it just kind of happened that I started teaching, and I truly enjoy it. And I started teaching at Washington State University and now at Maricopa Community Colleges, and I ended up back at Maricopa. So in 2016, I was at the crossroad between my acceptance as a Peace Corps volunteer in Senegal, as a small business advisor in Dakar, or I had the option to move to the United Arab Emirates and teach at the American University in the Emirates. And I decided to choose UAE, and also because in 2011, since 2011, I had a big interest in the Middle East and Islam as a religion. I also choose that because of the tax-free option of salary than being a Peace Corps volunteer. But I do think that was like the second thing. I choose it almost blindly. Like I didn't really have any connection to the Middle East. I wasn't really aware of the benefits that I had of being in academia in the UAE. So this talk really made me reflect. And I actually came up with 5 reasons and benefits that I had being in academia in the UAE. So number one was the location. UAE is between 3 continents, really kind of in the middle. If any of you know the picture of Jerusalem from the 1500s, like it's this leaf, and it shows kind of is the center of the world. I'm not saying UAE is the center of the world, but that's kind of what it represents for me. It was like a super 2 to 5 hour flight to Europe, 2 to 5 hours flight to East Africa, West Africa, Southeast Asia. I felt like it was a great opportunity to kind of travel, and Emirates Airlines were actually located there. So what better way to do it? Number two was moving in the UAE meant that I actually got a glimpse into the Gulf culture, which is a perfect name for this talk, Arabian Gulf Academia, specifically to the Gulf. And I thought I'm only gonna be exposed to the Gulf countries, right? I didn't thought I'm gonna actually be exposed to all the other Arab countries, like Yemen and Egypt and Morocco and Palestine and Jordan. So besides the Arab culture and the Islam that I was actually exposed, the number three for me was truly a dream come true as an anthropologist, as I was surrounded by a plethora of cultures. I learned about not just the Arab cultures and Islam, but I also learned about Iran and Pakistan and India, and also the connection that Gulf countries had historically and present with their surrounding continents, like Asia and Africa. So number four was at the university that we were teaching, me and Matthew, UE, had around 70% of their students were locals, which was a rare find. If any of you know, I'm sure the panelists know, but only 11% of the UAE population are locals, which means it's extremely rare to actually meet a local. You can see them at the mall maybe, but you don't really talk to them. You don't really interact with them. So I was quite aware now. I'm quite aware that if I would have not been in academia and I would have been in any other field, financial field, or working in an office, I would have not had this exposure to the local culture. So having this exposure actually allowed me to learn insights of the culture politically and socially that we do not read in the newspapers or not even in academic papers. So the number five that I probably is my top is that when I was teaching, I'm an anthropologist and sociologist, which means that I was teaching topics that I was said that I'm not supposed to teach, but that was like half of my curriculum was about that. So we were talking about politics, about government, about family, marriage, and gender. So every time when we talked about this, it was such an intriguing and interesting conversation with the students and brought so much enlightening in my life. I just hope that as much as they offer me, I hope I also offer something to them, a different exposure to different cultures. I didn't just come with an American cultural background, but I came with a European background and also with a lot of traveling behind me.